You are tuned in to On Air with Chris Shanafelt. Welcome back, On Air with Chris Shanafelt, as we continue our Player Spotlight series with the 2020 NFL Draft Class. And I'm now joined by wide receiver out of Division II powerhouse Minnesota State-Mankato. He's Shane Zylstra. And Shane, I really appreciate you taking the time this evening. How's everything going?
Everything's going really well. I appreciate you having me on.
The pleasure is all mine. And Shane, for those unfamiliar with you, for those unfamiliar with your story, with your journey, you're from Spicer, Minnesota. You went to New London Spice High School. What was the recruiting scene like for you, and how did you decide that Minnesota State-Mankato was going to be the best fit for you?
You know, the recruiting coming out of high school is pretty minimal. Actually, I was recruited mostly by the schools in our conference, in the NSIC conference. You know, I had a few walk-on offers to some Division I AA schools, but ultimately, obviously, chose Mankato, and I think it worked out for me.
To say the least, it certainly looks like it worked out for you. You redshirted your first year, and then the following year in 2016, Shane, you would make an instant impact as you hauled in 29 receptions for 500 yards and 7 touchdowns. What would you say allowed you to make the instant impact that you made your first year active for the Mavericks?
You know, it was just that developmental year. We had a really big or large group of seniors that year, and obviously that next season when I played. And it was just learning from those guys and really learning and taking everything I could from them on how to be a great college football player.
And throughout your career, Shane, you put up 227 receptions, over 4,300 receiving yards, and 54 touchdowns. You dominated week in and week out despite being one of, if not the main focal point on opposing defensive scouting reports. You know, what's even more impressive is the fact that Mankato, a run-heavy, run-first type offense, and here you are putting up those type of numbers at receiver. What's it been like to have such a big impact on one of the best teams in the nation?
You know, it's an incredible feeling. Just kind of looking back on all those stats, it's pretty surreal. But like you said, Chris, you know, we are a run-heavy school, and that's something we pride ourselves on. And, you know, we didn't care who knew about it because we'd go out there and boast that. So I think I helped complement that run game very well.
You absolutely did, and as a junior, you set a Minnesota State record in receiving yards. You racked up 1,261 yards on 66 receptions to go with 14 touchdowns. You would shatter those numbers this past season as a senior. You hauled in 81 receptions for 1,676 yards and 18 touchdowns. You helped lead the Mavs to a 14-1 record. Unfortunately, that one loss came in the national championship game, 48-40 against West Florida, a game in which you had 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. But now being a couple months removed from the season and your collegiate career officially coming to an end, Shane, you know, just how special have the past 4 years been at Mankato?
You know, it's been nothing short of amazing. You know, as a freshman, you look back on it and you hear all the seniors talk about how fast it goes, but then you think, oh, you know, I have 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. And then, you know, obviously I'm a senior now, graduated, and it really does go that fast. And you can't take that time for granted, that's for sure.
And I have to ask, what has it been like playing for head coach Todd Hoffner and his staff, Shane? Ever since Hoffner arrived at Mankato, the Mavericks have always seemed to be in contention. They've been in conversation for conference titles and obviously national titles as well. What's it been like being a part of a team with the winning mindset and the winning culture that's been instilled over the years at Mankato?
Yeah, it's been awesome. You know, it's pretty special for us. We had very little turnover in my 4 years there. You know, everybody knows it's no secret that Division II is, you know, the stepping stone for coaches. You know, they turn over coaches all the time, but we were very fortunate to keep a lot of our coaching staff. So I think that was a huge part of our success, was just to be able to, you know, grow that culture and that winning tradition like you talked about.
And playing in the NSIC, Shane, it's one of the tougher conferences in Division II. We see guys come out of that conference year in and year out that go on to have NFL careers. Very talented conference, very competitive conference. Is there a certain player or two that comes to mind, you know, when I ask you who the best player you've lined up against has been over the last handful of years?
Gunnar Olszewski for Bemidji State and now the Patriots, he was, he's someone that definitely really stood out to me. He was phenomenal, and we were able to line up actually across from each other most of that game. So, when you mention that, that's probably who I think of right away.
Absolutely, and now a key special teams player for the New England Patriots. Again, we're chatting with 2020 NFL draft prospect, the record-breaking All-American wide receiver out of Minnesota State-Mankato. He's Shane Zylstra, and Shane, one of the best wide receivers currently playing in the NFL, comes from Minnesota State-Mankato. He turned a tryout into a practice squad contract and worked his way up through special teams to rising up the wide receiver depth chart, and now he's known as arguably the best route runner in the NFL, and that's Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen. Not to mention your brother, Brandon Zylstra, plays professionally. He had one of the best seasons as a wide receiver that a wide receiver has ever had in the Canadian Football League. Now he's playing for the Carolina Panthers. Seeing that you're now knocking on the NFL door, Shane, does it encourage you, seeing some guys like Adam Thielen, like your own brother, come from where you've come from and make it to the very top? Does it encourage you seeing guys, from your background or guys of your build make it to the very top?
Yeah, it's very encouraging, like you said. And, to get that feeling of having that background and similar body types and whatnot is very encouraging. And not only that, but the whole small school, knock that a lot of people get. Brandon coming from Division III, and then Adam obviously coming from Division II. It goes to show that there are players at every level.
Yeah, we see it year in and year out. If you can play, doesn't matter where you come from, whether it's FBS or D2, D3, they'll find you. What advice has your brother Brandon given you as you now look to follow his footsteps into the NFL?
Oh, I couldn't even narrow it down. We, I pick his brain all the time, and we're actually currently working out together. He's back in Minnesota, specifically, I think, to help me throughout my journey. But, yeah, every day we're working out together. We've been doing a lot of routes lately and lifting and all that, going through routes and depths and the verbiage in the NFL and everything. So he's just been a phenomenal resource for me.
And I'm sure it's always been the dream, Shane, but when did it hit you that you could turn this dream into a reality and actually play professional football? When did you realize that you were going to give this thing a full go?
It was obviously, like you said, a childhood dream, and, it's been in the back of my mind, but it was really probably my freshman year when I first played that first season that I was able to be productive, just as a freshman with a ton of seniors ahead of me. But it's kind of opened my eyes. I can play at a high level. I'm just a freshman. I'm just going to continue to, build on this. And then obviously seeing Brandon go through everything he did was very encouraging for me.
Of course, we have the NFL Combine going on this week, Shane, and soon the Pro Day circuit will begin. Can you just share with us where you are training at for your Pro Day, and when and where will that Pro Day take place at? Will Mankato hold their own Pro Day? Will you try and get into one of the bigger programs' Pro Days? Any update on that?
So I'm actually training at the training house under Bill Welly, and I will be running my Pro Day at the University of Minnesota. I just got confirmation today, but like you talked about, the Combine's going on now, and I actually just had to pause it because the wide receivers are running their 40s currently.
Oh, man. I appreciate you. I'm sure you're really looking forward to doing that, and congratulations on getting that, being accepted into the University of Minnesota Pro Day. Obviously a big opportunity for you. Now, going back to your high school days, Shane, I know you were an all-state performer in track and field. What events were you actually participating in back then, and does that track background help you at all as you now prepare for your Pro Day?
Yeah, so I actually competed in a few events. Obviously, you're only limited to 4, but I was a long jumper, triple jumper, high jump, actually threw shot put, and then ran in the 4x2 team. So it was a matter of, what events, how many points I could score and help the team win or whatever, to which 4 I chose. But my main event was the long jump.
Okay, awesome. So that should certainly help you come Pro Day. What are your goals for Pro Day, Shane? I mean, do you mind sharing what numbers you'd like to put up? Do you have any goals? I know your brother Brandon. I was, preparing for this interview, Shane. I was doing a bunch of research on you, looking at your brother's career as well, and I know every year he would write his goals down. Every year he would have a new list of goals. Do you do anything similar? And, would you mind sharing what some of your goals are come Pro Day?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. So as far as goals go, I actually have I believe it's 2008 to 2012 averages for every single position from the combine, whether it's 40, bench, all that. I have 2017 and 2018. We were given that sheet from our trainer, Bill Welly. And I have that posted in my bathroom, so it's something I see every single day. Along with that, next to that, I actually have my own goals for this process and throughout the year. So, yeah, Brandon actually instilled that goal-setting mentality, into me, and it's helped out a lot. As far as goals for my Pro Day, I haven't got too caught up. I'm just trying to put my faith, trust, and belief in Bill and, what he's done. He has a phenomenal track record of improving athletes' times and whatnot. But a big thing for me is the 40. So I've put a ton of attention into that. So we'll see. I don't know exactly the time. I'm shooting for a high 4.5, low 4.6. That'd be a really big goal for me.
And that'll be a great number, especially somebody of your size, Shane. I mean, something that stands out right away when watching your film. You don't even need to press play to see it, and that's your size. I see the Mankato website has you listed at 6'5", 215 pounds. Is that about where you're at right now?
So I'm a little bit shorter than that. I think they stretched that just a little bit. So I've been measured at like 6'3.5". I think it was what I was most recently measured at. And I'll be running my Pro Day at about 213 is what I expect. Okay,
awesome. Well, appreciate you confirming that. Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. The program's websites could be a little bit off, and they could be inflating and deflating at times. So appreciate that 6'3.5", about 213. Again, we're chatting with 2020 NFL Draft prospect, wide receiver out of Minnesota State Mankato, Shane Zylstra. And Shane, you rock the number 84. You're from Minnesota, so the first thing that comes to my mind is Randy Moss. Would that happen to be the reason why you sport the number 84? Was that a guy that you looked up to growing up?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the reasons. I actually came into college and requested a different number, but I actually got 84, and I thought, hey, obviously grew up watching Randy Moss. This is a perfect fit. Obviously, he's a big role model of mine. Then also, not only that, but 84 hadn't been worn from someone from Mankato in a long time, so I kind of wanted to make it my own number, so to speak.
And you certainly did that. If you don't mind me asking, what was the number that you requested, and was there a specific reason as to why you requested that number? Was there any sentimental value for that number?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It might have been 8 or 7. I was obviously 8 in high school, and no sentimental value to that, but just something I had in high school.
Absolutely. Well, safe to say you made the number 84 in the Minnesota Mankato Mavericks uniform. Your number, no doubt about that. I'm sure teams have been in and out of Mankato the past couple of years to check out practice and or games. Have you been able to meet with any teams up to this point, Shane? Any idea how they're viewing you as a pro prospect?
Yeah, I have been fortunate to meet with a few teams. Like you said, we had quite a few teams come through this fall. It's between 25 and maybe 30 teams come through and check out myself as well as other prospects. But I've met with a few teams during that process, and then I actually went down to Dallas for the College Gridiron Showcase, and I was able to meet with quite a few teams down there. So it was a great opportunity for me to get interviewed by them and get to know more about the team as well.
Absolutely. I was actually unaware that you participated in the College Gridiron Showcase, one of these up-and-coming all-star games, no doubt about it. I had the pleasure of actually covering it a couple of years ago. Can you just tell us about that experience, Shane? I mean, what was it like to go up against fellow players from, some of these bigger schools, some other fellow Division II guys as well, but overall just players that at the end of the day have the same goal as you, and that's to make it professionally? Like you said, Chris, it's a great opportunity to compete against that next level. And,
like we talked about earlier, was just having that small school knock, that many people get. And it was just trying to overcome that barrier. That was a huge part and a huge goal of mine to overcome while I was down in Dallas at the College Gridiron Showcase. And I think I did that. I think I stood out against quote unquote Division I guys. So I was very happy with my performance down there.
Couple more questions for you, Shane, then we'll let you go. Again, he's Shane Zylstra, wide receiver out of Minnesota State-Mankato, 2020 NFL draft prospect. And Shane, one of the things that really irks me, I'm a big fan of small school football, FCS football, Division II football, even dive into Division III football at times. And one of the things that irks me the most about the draft process, year in and year out, is looking at a player's scouting report and seeing one of the weaknesses listed as strength of schedule or lack of competition, as if it's certain, your choice of who you go up against week in and week out. Coming from a Division II program, Shane, like Minnesota State-Mankato, although it is a powerhouse in the Division II ranks, you're still going to get hit with that small school label. Is that something that, does it add a chip on your shoulder? Do you take pride in taking a route less traveled to get to where you want to ultimately get to, and that's the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be frustrating at times, but I've kind of accepted that role, and I just hope to prove a lot of people wrong. I have two, great examples in Adam Thielen and my brother Brandon. Like we talked about earlier, just coming from small schools and overcoming that barrier, and it's something I plan to do as well.
And for those not familiar with your game, Shane, how would you describe it? What are some of the strengths you bring to the wide receiver position?
I just feel like I'm that big body receiver that's able to make catches not only downfield but in traffic. I feel like I have elusive speed that kind of goes unrecognized sometimes, but I feel like I'm able to make, contested catches and really come down with football.
And I know this is a dream scenario that I'm drawing up here, Shane, but I know you didn't get the opportunity to play with your brother in high school. He's 4 years older than you, so right when you got into high school, he was just getting into college. What would it be like to play at the NFL level alongside your brother? Let's just say the Carolina Panthers take a shot at you. Have you ever thought about that up to this point? What would that be like playing alongside your brother Brandon in the National Football League?
It would mean everything. It's actually funny that you bring that up because Brandon and I have talked about that many times, and that's one of our goals that we both have, and that we talked about in that situation when I was a freshman and he was a freshman in high school and college. But it's something we've talked about for a very long time. We weren't able to do it in college, but it's something we've definitely talked about at the next level. So it'd be an incredible experience and just very cool to be line up across from him on the other side, that is.
And the Carolina Panthers, they could be a team that could look for a wide receiver at some point in the draft, or certainly as a priority free agent. So we will see. Final question, Shane, then I'll let you go. Let's say we have all 32 NFL general managers. They're tuned into this very interview. Why should they want the standout wide receiver out of Minnesota State-Mankato, Shane Zylstra, a part of their team?
I just feel like I'm a versatile player. I had a very productive college career, and not only as a wide receiver, but I have no problem transitioning to the tight end spot like some teams have talked to me about. So just being versatile like that, I've been very fortunate to be durable as well. And like we talked about, I had a very productive years in college.
Well, Shane, I've had the pleasure of following your career from afar. And it's been an absolute pleasure to watch you do what you do week in and week out. Congratulations on all the success throughout your collegiate career. Really looking forward to seeing the numbers that you put up at that Minnesota Pro Day. Congratulations on getting accepted to that earlier in the day. And really looking forward to seeing where you land here in the next couple of months. Thank you very much for your time. And again, wishing you all the best.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for having me on.